Welcome to a combo podcast, a cross pod, if you will. I'm Rob the Hammer Hammerschmidt, and we're cross podding with the Seawall podcast. Of course, you guys know the host, Matt Cartwright. I'm involved with the Rugby Rant, minus my mate, who's back in New York, Scott, the big guy Ferrara. And we've got a special guest on this cross pod today, somebody that resides not far from here over in South Bend, Indiana. He is the director of both the men's and women's club rugby for Notre Dame, and he is the head coach of the men's Notre Dame rugby team. So we've got Justin Hickey here. Justin, how the hell are you, mate?
I'm awesome. We're doing well. I got one here, so I think we're good. No, I appreciate you guys both having me. This is a lot of fun. Like you said, only about 90 minutes or so from Chicago, and Easter break for the students back at Notre Dame. So good enough excuse to load up the family, come to the game, and join you guys here before.
Thank you.
Yeah, and it's courtesy of Matt that got this rolling, got Justin involved, so we appreciate that, mate. I mean, quite frankly, how'd you convince the wife to say, yeah, we're going to pack up the day before Easter? I mean, Notre Dame's, I think it's a Catholic university. I'm not quite sure. But, pack it up and say, yeah, let's go to watch the Hounds on Saturday evening, the day before Easter.
Well, we have picked a mass location for tomorrow, so we'll probably go in sneakers and spring break gear. But to be honest with you, spring break didn't line up with the kids, or Easter break didn't line up with the kids' spring break that well. Usually we'd take them somewhere warm, get down to Florida. We were looking to go on the lakeshore, Lake Michigan, and he reached out, and it was a good enough excuse to kind of shift onto the other side of the lake.
Got a kitchen
book a place in Chicago and make it fun. But the kids are having a ball. My kids are 11, 8, almost 8 in a few days, and 4, and they're having a blast. They're having a good time. They'll be at the game tonight too.
Good. Well, apparently there's going to be a certain dog that's going to make an appearance today, and that dog now has a name. I believe it is Houndy McHoundface, if I'm not mistaken.
I think that sounds right.
Okay, yeah.
I thought it was a joke.
No joke. It's
April
legit.
Fools is a couple days away, so we'll see if they don't spring that on us.
Right.
Well, it let's be honest. It's actually what we would probably make a nickname for our own hounds at home. I have a few pet nicknames that are along those lines, so it's not too far away from probably what the kids would call their pet, right?
That's right.
So tell us about what's going on at Notre Dame and what's happening with the men's and women's program down there at the prestigious university.
Sure.
In South Bend.
So I've been there 8 years, or about to finish my 8th year. I got there in 2016. I took over from Sean O'Leary, who's now at Grand Canyon. Not many people might know Notre Dame was actually banned, or Notre Dame rugby was banned from the university from 95 to 07. So Coach O'Leary came in 07, kind of, rebuilt it from really the ashes. I mean, the club itself was founded in 1961, so it has a bit of a history, but kind of built it from scratch again in 07. We were playing on a field by the bookstore on football Saturdays. Guys that helped start the program that have played in this league, Nick Savetta in our early years, Mike Matarazzo, who I coached while I've been there, but they built a new field out on the northeast side of campus in 2013, and then of course, Coach O'Leary handed it off to me in 16. We've since built some stands out there, covered bench area. Hopefully, future plans to continue to develop some operational space. But with all of that, we've seen kind of a upward trajectory of both the men's and the women's programs on the 15s and the 7 side. The women started from scratch in 2010. So, we had a 40 or so, 50-year head start, I guess, total minus the years of absence, but they've done a great job. They've seen some success as well. And the exciting thing is we're nowhere near our ceiling on the field and with the development of the program. So that's what motivates me. That's what excites me. I grew up a Notre Dame fan. Lifelong. I didn't go there, wasn't smart enough to go there, but always been kind of the dream gig for me. So we're loving it. We're enjoying the community there on campus and in South Bend. And yeah, excited for what the near term and the long term future holds for the program.
Now, just last weekend, you guys hosted the Fighting Irish Sevens. It is a national qualifier. Obviously, you have the facilities to host it. How did that tournament go for you guys last weekend?
Yeah, it went well. It went really well. We've seen since the pandemic, coming out of the pandemic, 2022, we had 40 teams. So we had a 32 team bracket, and then an 8-team reserve bracket. Last year we dipped a little bit. We dipped down to 32 teams, had two 12-team pools or competitions between the qualifier and the open, and then a reserve comp, and then kind of shot back up to 41 teams. Had to keep a few teams on the wait list this year, but 4 fields, I think 80 something matches from 9 to 5:30 was the final. This year, thankfully, we had a little bit better weather. We've experienced some pretty chilly days the last couple of years, but it's been cool. Like when we first kind of envisioned what this tournament would be, we actually stuck it in May, and we wanted it to be a run up to the old CRC in Philly, and we found that it just wasn't getting a lot of traction. So we ignored the weather patterns in the Midwest and in South Bend and kind of moved it into March, thinking, okay, this can be the sort of the preseason or the start of the regular season, and see if we can't make it into something big. So 2 years ago, when we made it into a qualifier, that was exactly really what our goal was. We've kind of maxed out on the space and time out there, but it's been a great event, and we look forward to continuing to run it.
Awesome. Let's talk a little bit about and zoom out. This is something that, of course, with my son having played in college and just getting done with that experience, it's something that I'm super passionate about. And obviously, you know, as you and I both have a common friend, Dave Fee, who was at IU, who was involved in the Notre Dame Sevens program, and he understands the college landscape. And one of the things that we've discussed ad nauseum, he and I, has been kind of that. I mean, you talk about Mike Matarazzo, you talk about Civetta, you know, both coming from your program. But in the same token, too, there almost is a gap a little bit between college rugby and the MLR. And, you know, how do we close that gap? How do we tighten that bit of rugby up so that guys can make that transition more frequently? More guys doing what Mike and Nick did. Talk about where college rugby is at without getting too deep into the weeds with this question.
Sure,
You know, for people that don't understand the college rugby landscape.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of your first remark with closing the gap. You know, there's definitely programs like the Lindenwoods where your sons competed that have the daily training environments to set players up to make that next jump. I think Scott Lawrence, it's a new men's team, not interim head coach. You know, it's a big part of his vision is how does he help close that gap and bridge that gap. And I know that he's got some initiatives that he's looking into with possibly some academy type stuff or some short-term type stuff for either kids that choose to not go to college or are coming out, maybe not quite ready for a full MLR experience. But I know that there's a lot of good people working really hard to push collegiate rugby in America. I think we all just wish they were pushing in the right direction. You know, but I think as a coach, you know, the best thing that we can do is just focus on our program. Like I said, kind of create the best daily environment that we can to prepare kids, provide a great experience, and hope that, you know, a few of them, if they so choose, can make their way up. But, you know, I think everybody agrees there's a place for the competitions that we have. It's just a matter of agreeing on when to play them and who's going to help oversee them. But I think it's an exciting time for college rugby. I'd like to see our participation numbers, but it seems like we've got probably record numbers of kids playing and new programs popping up, and you know, more and more playing sevens at this point in the season. And you have a D1A competition that's starting next week that should be the most competitive that it's ever been, and that's exciting too.
So that kind of, you led into my next question a little bit with some of your remarks and talking about that place for college rugby and that place for some of the competitions. I think what you're talking about is NCR, National Collegiate Rugby, and the CRAA, which is a Collegiate Rugby Association of Americas. And they have these two different competitions, not unlike NAIA and the NCAA, right?
Sure.
In collegiate and other collegiate sports, football, basketball, et cetera. So, I guess my first question is, from a program like yours, like Notre Dame, how do you make a decision, or what goes into the calculus as to which avenue you guys are going to participate in, and perhaps why? You guys are obviously an NCR team.
Yep,
because you're engaged in the qualifier. So what was part of your decision as a director and as a coach of why you guys are going into the NCR versus CRA?
Yeah, so good question. I figured it was probably coming. That's why we alluded to it a little bit. But I've experienced, multiple teams, multiple institutions. I coached for a couple years at Davenport, and we were coming up through the USA Rugby divisions, D1 AA by the time that I left. And then down at Clemson, we experienced the split season 15s. I think when I first got there, it was the January to May, which you see mostly on the West Coast, playing all your 15s. We tried some different stuff. Sevens was just starting to pick up some steam with the previous CRC, originally in Columbus, Ohio. We kind of tried it all down there. We did fall sevens, spring 15s, then we switched to fall 15s, spring sevens, and then we got invited to the Varsity Cup. And we thought, okay, for us, this is a great opportunity for our program. Maybe it doesn't fit how we thought we were going to structure our competitions. And we went back to that split fall, spring 15s model so that we could play through to the Varsity Cup. And then that also led to an opportunity in the CRC with sevens. So we play kind of in the tail end. Now I get to Notre Dame, and it's pretty similar format. We're playing fall 15s, Varsity Cup in the spring, and then into the CRC. And we kind of sat down and said, look, what's best for us? We feel like we're doing multiple things, and we're doing it at probably like a 70% capacity. So we actually made the shift to a fall 15, spring sevens before NCR kind of came in and wanted to, create that model for teams. So for us, it was just what we felt fit best for us. And I think that's what a lot of teams are doing, whether you're a CRAA or an NCR, or you're playing, prioritizing 15s pretty much all academic year, or you're doing both. So for us, that's really what led to the decision to operate how we do.
Yeah. I got to ask this while we're on the topic. You talked about the seasons, and seasonality and regionality are two of the biggest Rubicons in American rugby. So. It's probably one of the things that when we bring in foreign coaches or foreign administrators, and they're great. I don't want to dismiss what they bring to our competitions, but the thing they have the most difficulty dealing with are those two elements, because they just don't exist in other countries like they exist in the United States. That being said, let's talk a little bit about the CRCs coming up, the CRAA tournament, the D1A Rugby, USA Rugby sponsored tournament coming up. We have the round of 16 starting next week. You got your Lindenwoods, you got your Lifes, you got your Cals. Heck, I think we've seen Mary out in California. St. Mary's. Yeah. We've seen St. Mary's have a resurgent season this year. You got your Central Washington. Arizona just qualified. So you've got a great caliber of teams. I'm going to put you on the spot here.
Do it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Who's your Final Four?
Oh, man, that's tough. I got some close friends that coach a number of those teams, and I'm rooting for them all. And often I'm rooting for each. I'll send a text to one in the morning and send a text to the other while they're playing each other. I think St. Mary's looks like they're playing some of the best rugby on the West Coast. I'm trying to picture the bracket. I think Central Washington might be the number 2 seed on the bottom. I think I could see them coming out of that part of their bracket. I think maybe they beat BYU in a close one this year. So I'd put St. Mary's and Central Washington on the west side. And then I got to go with Navy. Only one loss in the last 2 full collegiate seasons to an American team, at least. You know, I don't know their health coming into this playoff portion of the season, but it's tough to bet against them. And I think, is Lindenwood on that side, or
Lindenwood's on the bottom.
Lindenwood's on the
you
bottom.
know, assuming
Life's
they
on
win
the
this
top.
weekend, they play the loser of Life and the winner of Life and some
Army. Is it Life and
it
Army?
might be Life and Army.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I think I got Lindenwood on the other side. I think it's tough to not pick Life. I think Life's on the Navy side. I think Navy might have got him in the fall, and I know that's early for Life in their overall season, but that's what I'd go at: St. Mary's, Central Washington, Navy, and Lindenwood. And sorry, Blake Bradford. Sorry, Matt Sherman, but I got to do it.
Love it.
So it's I mean, college rugby, now that there's more social media and more exposure, it's wonderful to watch. Obviously, the Rugby Network playing a huge role in getting more and more rugby on TV, or at least accessible. You know, when I talk about my son starting to play in the collegiate level, 5 years ago now, you had to rely upon the university's production programs to get it out there. Now you're seeing, Friday Night Lights produced by my good friend Ryan Ginty and Next Level Rugby. You're seeing that the Rugby Network putting out some of these, D1A top class matches going out on the men's side. It's been wonderful to see. What's the next step for collegiate rugby? What do we have to do? What is that next step? I mean, what's the next iteration? I've heard people balk at saying we don't need, not that it'll ever happen, but we don't need NCR and CRA to merge. We don't need to have one system. They can coexist and have they exist for different reasons to an extent. So what is the next iteration of collegiate rugby? What does it have to do to take that next step and really kind of set that standard to move forward on?
Yeah, that's a good question. And my initial thoughts as you were talking about kind of the exposure, we've seen the hard push to linear television with the CRC on NBC and for a period on ESPN and their platforms. And now you see so much going to YouTube and other social media outlets, the Rugby Network. And, I'm probably just below the generation that's still flicking through the channels and stumbling upon something, and maybe just ahead of the generation that's just going straight to on demand and streaming. But if you asked me 4 years ago, I think I probably thought it was a bad thing that it seemed like it was trending away from linear. But I think that's where we're going with our technology. So it'd be great to see more rugby on NBC and on ESPN and ESPN Plus and all that. But I'm not sure that we need it to drive the game forward. I love that, like you said, more and more institutions are handling it themselves. We handle it ourselves. We got a great production team that puts out a good product. But as far as on the field and with the competitions, it's a tough one. I mean, I do wish everyone was working together, and I think everybody agrees that the competitions that we have established right now is what we need. We need our top 16 to 20 to maybe 25 or 30 someday competing in the best competition, and the D1A CRAA 15s competition provides that. And then on the other side, NCR provides a great service for 600 or so whatever teams that want to play 15s in the fall and 7s in the spring and play to a championship. I don't know. I think we need more support from the institutions, whether that's a varsity model or something kind of below, providing resources for student athletes that, are going to really, truly develop them over 4 years. And you're seeing that with Navy making the jump up to varsity a couple of years ago, and Army making a jump a few years ago. And like we said, we've got the established Lindenwoods and Lifes, and I think seeing more and more of those varsity teams start. There's some tough news coming out of Notre Dame College, but it sounds like there's going to be some exciting news, on the back end. It might be a silver lining of maybe some other Northeast Ohio programs sprouting up. You've got a couple in the St. Louis area, Drury, McKendree, UHSP. Did I get that one right? I mean, I think maybe that's where our niche is some of the smaller schools that are looking for their own niche sport, whether it's equestrian or esports, and maybe rugby fits that with a number of them. Maybe that helps really propel us into the next level for us. But we still need to raise the long established club programs and teams that are trying to be competitive as well. It's the $1 million question. I don't know if I have the answer, but there's a space for everything we're doing right now. We just got to get on the same page.
100%. I feel like I'm dominating the conversation, Matt.
Jump in.
Bring it over.
The water's warm.
I got a couple questions.
The water's warm.
No, it's hard. Rob's such a example of how to interview. In all sincerity, I'm not kissing your ass, but I am a fan. So I got some other questions that are not as Rob's polished. I gotta say. So mine was, we were talking a little earlier, like, should I be calling you doctor?
Not yet. And I keep going on my LinkedIn and pushing that date back and won't let me leave it open. But,
I love it.
Yeah. I mean, it is something that's still in the back of my mind. And like we said earlier, when I left Clemson in 2015, I'd completed 4 years of coursework and left kind of all but dissertation. And my family, my wife and I, and one child at the time, moved up to Pittsburgh to take a high school administrative position. And I continued to do some research. We had our second child, moved to South Bend to take the Notre Dame gig, and kind of took a leave of absence. And then when I went to go back, like we said, my advisor, 3 advisors had left the university, found myself sort of knocking on the door and not quite fitting back in. But I continue to teach online classes in their undergrad athletic leadership program. And they have a master's program as well. Teach is a very loose term.
Stop
Teachers over
downplaying
there.
yourself. Come on.
Is it online? No. I'm up in South Bend. They're down there, but I do enjoy it. And hopefully there's talk of I was in educational leadership, but my focus really was on athletic administration. And there's talk of a new athletic leadership PhD program. So I'm just kind of waiting, hoping to
opportunities coming your way. I
hope so. I mean, these things move slow, as do most bureaucratic organizations, especially state-funded universities. So we'll see if they do. But I really do want to complete it, and then possibly do some more education at Notre Dame in the future.
Yeah, he is not ambitious would be a minor word for you, brother, because you're here coaching in Clemson and you're doing your PhD. I don't know, the rest of us probably getting back doing the coaching thing, and especially with that family and the whole work family balance on top of all that. I don't know about you, but raising a kid and having a wife, that's a lot in itself. And then to do the head coach and be the mentor for all those guys, and then do a PhD on top of it, I couldn't do it.
We were crazy, and we were a lot younger than we are now. My wife, she has a business degree and actually lived and worked in Chicago for about 9 years before we moved down to South Carolina. And then she decided to go back and get a nursing degree. So it definitely was a hectic time in our lives. And
family full of driven people, dude, straight up. How did you get the ability in the start, or how about the again, the drive to start up the whole Davenport?
It's actually an interesting story. So I was in Grand Rapids coaching my former high school, Grand Rapids Catholic Central, and it actually reached out to Scott Lawrence. He was still active at Life. And I said, I think that there's a great opportunity here at Davenport. Davenport's an institution that, similar to Life, was more graduate studies focused, and they also had associates programs. So it was kind of like adult nighttime education. And then I think in early 2000s, they made a shift to traditional education, restarted their athletic program. So I said to Scott, they're primed for a rugby program. So kind of put together a proposal. didn't actually ever get to deliver it before I found out they were starting a team. So it was coincidence.
Wow. Okay.
Like totally unrelated, like just total coincidence. So I found out who they hired as the head coach. I reached out, just said, hey, I'd love to help in any way that I can. And ended up getting a full-time job there as a admissions counselor. So I did my master's degree in Grand Rapids at Grand Valley State for school counseling. I thought that was going to be kind of my path to coaching. Didn't know if I wanted to be in the classroom, but felt like I could be a guidance counselor, coach some high school rugby, and that would, really fulfill me in my life. But really kind of found that I wanted to be in working with college kids in that kind of age group. So I got kind of lucky, right place, right time. They welcomed me in. I did it for a couple years, and then really it was the drive to do the PhD and to have a bigger school experience. I went to Central Michigan. We'd go tailgate for the football game, but then we'd leave when the football game kicked off. Like it was
all the fun.
Yeah, it was exactly. And so I just kind of wanted that. And I was able to get that at Clemson, studying and coaching, but loved my time at Davenport, loved watching their success after I left. I mean, I can't take credit for a lot of it. I did help start it, but they won after I was
2011, 2012. They won the championship, right?
The season I left, they won the D1 AA championship, and then I think they won it 2 years in a row before they made the jump up, and then took their lumps against the Mid-South teams for a few years after that. Yeah,
that's how we learn. That's how we learn. Yeah, let's see. Head coach. You got head coach there in 2003 years in a row, 13, 14, and 15.
Say it again.
You got head coach, Atlantic Coast Rugby League Coach of the Year for 2013, 2014, and then Penn Mutual Varsity Cup Collegiate Coach of the Year in
2015.
Yeah, 3 years in a row.
Almost 10 years ago, right? I think.
Oh, you downplaying yourself? You downplaying it, bro?
You gotta get another hit out here.
Yeah.
Well, I inherited a program that was struggling at Clemson. We had some great kids that really helped turn it around and made me look good. Again, some guys like Jason Dam, who's still in the league out at the new Los Angeles franchise. I got there at a time where South Carolina, North Carolina rugby, North Carolina still very much is. South Carolina struggles a little bit, but was very fertile, was producing great young rugby players. And they did. I mean, I always tell people, you're only as good as a coach as the players you got on the field. And we had, some really good horses, some kids that were really dedicated. And I think that the 2015, we sort of hit our pinnacle. We beat Arkansas State in the Varsity Cup, and then lost to Navy by 1 point in a game that we were leading for 76 minutes up at their place. I don't know if we caught lightning in a bottle. I think they're still a very strong program, but yeah, proud of what they did. And I was able to collect some accolades sort of off the coattails of what the guys were able to do for those few years.
Class act. Love it. So my last question really is, I'm really curious because now we talked about your PhD, talked about all that you've done that Rob's brought up, which is immense. How do you and your queen keep such a good life-work balance with a family and all that you have as for responsibilities?
It's a good question. She's a rock star. I mean, like I said, she decided after almost a decade in one career, marketing, that she wanted to go back. I think healthcare is kind of in her blood. Her mom was a nurse for her entire career. She's an incredible nurse, driven, motivated, but she signed up for it when we were in college. We dated in college while I was a rugby player.
Sucker.
So she got exactly. So she got the taste of it. There were definitely times where I said, if anybody puts you on their shoulder and they ask you if you want to be the rugby queen, say no and come get me. So she could fend for herself. She knew how to handle herself well around the rugby guys. And I mean, really, that was it. We actually had gone two separate ways. When she moved to Chicago to pursue her career, I continued to pursue rugby. And I guess 6 years later, we reconnected, and she knew I was pursuing a career in coaching, and we said, do we really want to do this? Or are you willing to do this? And I know it's not always easy, especially with 3 kids. I think we remind each other pretty frequently that it's not always easy, but the biggest thing, anybody will tell you, and we tell our players too, right? In any organization, is communication. Like, we've got a big calendar, 2-month calendar in our house, and like, that calendar is gospel. Like, if it's not on the calendar, we're both like, it's not on the calendar. Like, you got to put it on the calendar.
I forgot. No, I forgot.
Yeah. And then we've got our Google Calendar, and that's really it, is both really stepping up in whether it's dropping the kids off at school and getting them ready and making lunches and keeping the house up, and while we're both working full-time jobs. And I remind her sometimes, she was a D1 college athlete. She played Division I soccer at Central Michigan. And there are definitely times where I say to her, this feels like the end of practice, where you just have to put your head down and ignore the voices and just sprint and grind. And she gets it. Like, that resonates with her. There are definitely a lot of rewards to being parents and having a family. We wouldn't trade it for anything, but there are definitely times where you just have to grind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, good stuff. Thank you for sharing. By the way.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, Rob, what do you got?
I'm good. I got an opportunity to ask some questions just about the college landscape. I think it's one of those areas that a lot of fans of rugby, or people that are coming into rugby, have difficulty understanding it. Sometimes they call it the Wild West of rugby, because, as much as you want to make comparisons, like I said before, to NCAA and NAIA, because there's 2 major organizations, still difficult for people to understand. You've got, D1, D1 AA, D3 in the NCR, along with club, championships there. And then you've, of course, got CRAs coming up. And then you've got a 15 season, but for CRA, the 15 season doesn't really take off until the spring. But by that time, NCR is really hitting its stride with regard to sevens. So for me, that's really what I wanted. I want people to have an understanding, because, as we love the league, people start to look at what feeds it. How do we get more eyes on those kids that are filling up the rosters, the American kids that are consuming those roster spaces? Where do they come from? Where do they get their experiences? What schools do they come from? Let me look at those schools and see, the Lindenwoods, the Lifes, the, Cals, the Armies and Navies, et cetera. I mean, Koiko Nilligan and Colin Gross both came from that, Army national championship team.
I'll add a couple more anecdotes. When probably year 3, year 4 at Notre Dame, we can't offer slots. We can't tag kids, so they got to be able to get into Notre Dame. But we'll do everything we can to support their application. We've got some great relationships with folks. Rugby's got a great reputation on campus, so I think that does help. But if you'd asked me at the start of MLR, where's Notre Dame going to fit into this, I would have told you our kids are not going to play in the MLR. There are some that are close to that level, but they're, laser focused on getting to Wall Street and getting a consulting job in Chicago and getting out to a tech company
So that pays the
in
bills.
Silicon Valley. Exactly. Mike's a great example, and Nick's a great example of guys that were willing to kind of put their careers aside. I mean, Nick went on to earn a master's degree at Cal and a master's degree at Oxford, right? So, and played a very successful professional rugby career. But I think you got to be willing to probably have that conversation with mom and dad and say, look, we spent, a little bit of money to get a Notre Dame degree. And then I want to put this on hold and pursue a rugby career. But before you jump in, where I was going with this is it couldn't have been more different. I probably talked to 150 kids now a year that are at least considering Notre Dame, domestic and international, and it's probably close to 75% now overseas. And almost all of them, they want to play some sevens, and they're considering MLR as a pathway for them. So they're looking at the programs in the U.S. that will help. In our case, it's academics, it's sports, and having the kind of the traditional college experience. But for many of them, it's how can this help me in my rugby goals beyond college. And I would have never thought that 4 years ago or so. So if we're experiencing that, I got to think they're experiencing it everywhere. It's going to take some time. We only got 7 years to the World Cup, but hopefully now those kids that are 17 years old and up and kind of coming through the college programs are projecting through to Major League Rugby and into academies and prepared by 2031 to help the U.S. Compete in our home World Cup.
Well, yeah, and one of those guys is going to be starting his first start in his MLR career here, a draft pick from not Notre Dame. It's still in the state of Indiana. Noah Brown. Noah played for the Chicago Lions here, played sevens, has done a little bit of a little stint in Chula Vista with the USA Sevens program, but he's really starting to take off and hit a stride here in the MLR. And it seems like it's interesting. I think those kids are making that decision. Like, yeah, my career can wait. Let me do this thing and see how far I can take it and see where that success can take me. And then that success can be partly because I think you make good connections in the MLR because a lot of your business leaders, and we see, Peter Bernick's a great example. Phil Grove's a great example here in Chicago that, once you make that established connection, they know what you're made of. They know the kind of commitment that you can make as an athlete, that you'll apply that same commitment to your professional life when you're done with rugby.
Yeah, no, that's right. I mean, whether it's military or in the boardroom, you can look up a lot of sound bites and podcasts and, articles that are written that talk not only about Division I athletes or college athletes, but rugby players specifically. And they know they're going to have strong values. They're going to have a good work ethic. They're going to be able to get up off the floor when things aren't going easy. And like you said, you got that MLR network with a lot of, very successful businessmen. They're involved in a lot of these organizations. It should and it could and should lead to a career either during. Some have hybrid opportunities, but definitely after their playing days. It's a great outcome that we probably don't talk enough about with the Major League.
Yeah, 100%. And I think it's something that should be talked about. You're right. It should be more obvious for those kids who are concerned and go to programs like Notre Dame or, Indiana or Lindenwood or Life or wherever they're going, that their experiences here are going to be able to parlay into a professional life. As we begin to close out what we're here for today, obviously Hounds and the Seattle Seawolves last year here at SeaTac Stadium, they played 2 matches. Seattle took both matches, much to Matt's celebration. But the one here was lightning and stopped. I think it's one of 2 that's ever happened in the MLR over the course of 7 years. So let's get back to what's happening today, gentlemen. As we close out, who are we picking and are we giving points? What's going to be the margin here?
You go first.
You want me to go first? I'll go first. All right. So I'm a man crossed. Okay. So like every time I come to Chicago, I get treated right. And so underneath mine is dun, 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 repping. Like I have 2 team fans. I'm a fan of 2 teams and I'm not shy. Everybody says you can only have one team. They can kiss my you-know-what. And
don't tell me how to be a fan.
Yeah, I'll be my fan. Thank you very much.
I've been there.
Yeah, I know a guy, right? I know a guy. He's like, Nola. And then Chicago shows up. He's like, Chicago. So, like, I love it. Like, we get each other. What are you thinking? I mean, you're kind of like, you're a Midwest boy. I don't expect you to think anything other than Chicago.
I have to take Chicago. We were waiting for a Midwest team that we could get behind. I'd say I kind of supported Atlanta maybe early on with friends down there, and that's where Mike started his career after graduating. But we're all Hounds now. Like you said, I mean, there's definitely you want to get behind some other teams and just root for the league in general, but I've got to go with the Hounds, and hopefully I know they've struggled the last couple games and they made some changes. I'd hate for Seattle to be the get right game, but I'm hoping that's what it is today.
And don't get it wrong, Rob gave him some Seattle gear right before this interview. So like we still got a little bit of influence. Like he can like a West Coast team. Come on through, West Coast. Yeah. You can like the Hounds at the end of the day, but like root for it, brother. You know what I'm saying?
So who you got then?
I'm taking Seattle. I got to take Seattle.
Okay.
I got too much on Seattle, bro. Like I got too many relationships. Those boys are. and they're developing, like they're coming to Jesus. They're figuring out their ball handling skills, which is really where they've been having the hard time. Yeah. But the talent is there. It's just the bonding, right? So like, okay, good example. I was going to interview Reed Davis on Tuesday, and typical young man, Reed, calling you out, bro, not trying to be a jerk or anything, but like, he had some commitments later that night that I wasn't aware of, and timelines and stuff, and he's like, no, I got the boys and I are going out because they get Wednesdays off, and he's like, the boys and I are going out, and like, we'll reschedule. Bond. We need you guys to bond. You need to bond. That is more important than anything else in rugby, in my personal opinion, because without that, you don't trust each other. You don't know each other. And that is everything when you're ad-libbing through a play. And so I'm like, done. And watching them develop, and then we're not even really to injury time yet. I mean, we got a couple concussed, but that's not, major stuff. That's, 2 or 3 games tops. And hence Pete Malcolm's back today as our hooker. And to watch him and the Butcher go at it, it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, that will be fun.
Me, that's a tough one. I watch what we did see, and if you guys haven't paid attention to who the starting lineups are, we have a change today at the midfield. We're seeing Carlisi come in at 10. And Meeks being popped out to 12. And I think this is what a lot of Hounds fans have been waiting to see. Because as awesome of a player as Billy Meeks is, he is a natural 12. And I like we go back to England and they've shown a lot of success being able to have a 10-12 combination that could distribute the ball. So that if your 10 took the ball in or your 12 took the ball in, you've still got another decision maker as your first receiver. And I think we see that with both of those two, Carlisi and Meeks. And then Cardi's getting an opportunity and he's going to be back at 15 today. The key for me is penalties. Seattle's been high in the penalty mark lately, and I think you'll see Carlisi with his foot. He can really put points on the board, keep that ticking over. I think the Hounds can do that, keep their penalties down, handling if they can handle like they did in the first 3 games instead of the last one. Yeah. I think that'll be critical. I like the Hounds by 2 in this one. Now that I know that the midfield changeover, I just think it's a more natural connection in that 10-12 lineup. So I'm going with the Hounds by 2.
Okay, I love that take.
So
I'm really enjoying seeing Adrian come into his leadership position, because in Seattle, he didn't have an opportunity. Okay. And then I think I'm going to cry 2 weeks in a row. God, please. Because we had AJ hand us our ass last week. Okay. Real talk. AJ got traded to Houston. And then he had the boot of all boots this last week. And yes, sir. Yes, sir. Another 10, right? Yeah. And then we got Adrian stepping up to another 10. And like, you guys had to leave us to be successful. They've always been successful. I shouldn't say it that way, but man, if you are not shining another team and then kicking us around the poles, we're like, what? Yeah. No, it's fun to watch. It's fun to watch these guys develop, because at the end of the day, I'm an old man compared to these guys. So I'm just over here just enjoying every minute of their development and MLR in general. Like that's why I struggle to pick a team. Like people will tease me, they see me online and shit, and I'll take pictures randomly, and you'll see me in Notre Dame, you'll see me in NOLA, you'll see. I was wearing New York, I'm in Wisconsin. I love the MLR, and I just love seeing everybody shine and get an opportunity, like get some rugby on a larger platform than college, and they can make a couple bucks doing it. And why not, right?
Yeah, I think that's the key, right? We just want to see rugby develop, and having a professional domestic league is the key to that. And obviously the key to success in 2027 and 2031. So gents, Justin, first of all, thanks for coming in. We wish Notre Dame good luck as you guys progress in the 7s and the NCR competition. We wish you guys all the well, both the men's and the women's side. And it's great to have you on and join the podcast, because it's because of guys like you that players continue to develop and have their eyes set on the MLR. And of course, Superfan, it's always good to cross collab on a podcast, right?
And we get to do it live this time.
We got to do it live this time. Yeah. So it's been awesome. So with that, you're looking at Seawall Podcast, Rugby Rant Podcast, and of course, Notre Dame Rugby, all representing here. And we appreciate it. We're going to take it out. We're going to go out and have a lot of fun in the parking lot, enjoy ourselves, enjoy our families as we prepare for Easter. But with that, we'll see you all at the next.